You are listening to the Marc Guzman Podcast Experience.
Okay. In your experience in working in wine, what makes a good bottle? What makes a bad bottle?
So personal, so very personal. Bad bottle, corked bottle.
Well, probably, you know what, I probably should have asked what makes a good wine and a bad wine. Yeah.
For me, with wine selection, I think the qualities you were saying, something that has character, something that's not hollow. For me, it's like mood, weather, food. I don't have just like always go to one wine. It's like, oh, it's so hot today. I typically, of course, when I first started drinking wines, the sweet wines were like, oh, these are delicious. And then progress as you taste and your palate changes. And then the first red wine that I just was like, oh, this is delicious, was a Cab Franc. And, but, oh, it's so hot today. I'm not going to pour myself a glass of Cab or a Zinfandel or something. Hey, I might pour a glass of that Rodeo White because it's cold and it's sweet, but it's not super syrupy sweet, or the Sauvignon Blanc. So I think it's very personal. As far as like bad wine, it can go bad in the process, a bad blend. Like those two things don't work for me, or the barrels can fail, the fermentation process can stall, corks can go bad, and I can taste the Viognier in our Chardonnay. Some people love our Chardonnay, and it's so personal. It's so like diverse.
Now, as a small winery, how's the business competition out there? Is it pretty tough to crack into different markets?
Can you say a little more about that?
Yeah. So you're competing not just with beers, and you're competing with wines, and you're competing with anything else that someone decides to drink. I mean, technically even water, right? So how hard is it as a small winery to crack into different markets, like to get exposure and attention out there to your wines?
I think it is one of our challenge, like I was saying, like drawing people to us, because we don't necessarily distribute. We don't distribute our wine. We've had like the little liquor store down the road carried our wine for a while, and we have worked to collaborate with local restaurants. We do have agreements with some of the restaurants that they won't charge corkage fee if someone brings our wine in. However, actually...
What restaurant is that?
Powder Cake.
Powder Cake?
Yeah,
okay.
And Aleila's by the Bay.
Okay.
So, and...
both in Hercules, California.
Yeah. So, and then I think maybe Dead Fish doesn't charge corkage, so a number of our customers, our guests will come in and take our wine, and we're heading off to Dead Fish.
Yeah.
So I think it is a challenge.
How do you see the Bay Area wine culture developing? Because there's different wineries. I mean, not just Rodeo, but Oakland, Richmond. I mean, you start seeing all these more independent. In Richmond, I mean, there's basically a collective of 5 wineries that share the same equipment, share the same facility, and all of them create their own unique wines. And so that's just that's one part of Bay Area wine, right?
Right.
So, like, how do you see the Bay Area wine culture developing, like, in your own world?
This concept of collaboration, sharing equipment, again, because the individual palates are so different. I know that things can be competitive. We don't approach it that way. Our Marc Grisham is a former city manager, so like bringing people together, bringing community together, that's a focus for us. So we're looking at kind of maybe jumping ahead, but some of our future plans. There are currently plans drawn up for a tap room to bring on site, so to really collaborate and bring people together and support local business. We've partnered with like the Rodeo Little League for fundraisers, Phillips 66 for their awards ceremony. So we really want this to be a community spot. We want Rodeo to have this place and the community to be able to enjoy and come and just come together there. The Food Truck Thursdays is a partnership with the chamber, and we had a barbecue after a cleanup walk with I'm gonna see if I can get this right, the Contra Costa Resource Conservation. So that's what we like to encourage and bring. And future plans to have a tasting room where I believe it's because of certain laws, like we're governed and we have certain permits for our tasting room and our wine production and tasting and pouring. So it's limited to our wines. However, expanding and having an additional tasting room where maybe we can encourage small winemakers to come up and offer their wines. So that's
Great.
sort of our vision for that.
Okay. So definitely future plans.
Yes.
So
Thank you for listening to this podcast short. For more podcast content, be sure to subscribe to all of our podcast channels on YouTube, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Libsyn, Castbox, Podbean, and literally anywhere else you listen to podcasts.